What if I told you there's a $150 billion problem right now in healthcare and companies are trying to fix it and need more data analysts to help? And I'm not talking about some new AI emerging unproven concept. I'm talking about patient no shows, people who book doctor's appointments and just don't show up. And it's costing the US healthcare system an estimated 150 billion every single year. Now, here is why you should care. The AI scheduling market is about to solve this problem and is projected to hit 1.45 billion by 2033. That's 28% growth year over year. And according to Grand View Research, and the number of people who are qualified to do this work is shockingly low. So today I'm going to break down what exactly this niche is, what jobs look like inside of it, what they pay, and how you can start positioning yourselves for these roles right now, even if you're brand new to healthcare analytics. So let's talk about why this matters. Across the US, roughly 1 in 4 scheduled medical appointments ends in a no-show, so they just don't show up. The national average sits around 23%, according to the data aggregated by the National Library of Medicine, and certain specialties get hit much harder. Sleep clinics and behavioral health see rates pushing up to 30 to 40%. Pediatrics and dermatology can hit 30%. Even the top performing primary care physicians are benchmarked by MGMA, deal with about 3 to 7% on a good day. Now, let's put this into dollars because each appointment costs a practice about $200 in lost revenue. So, for a single physician, that adds up to roughly $150,000 a year. Now, you scale that across the entire US healthcare system, and you get the $150 billion figure. Now, here is the part that most people miss. It's not just one missed visit. A 2019 Athena Health study found that patients who do no shows even just once have a 70% chance of never coming back within 18 months. And when you consider a patient's lifetime value to a practice, that can easily be $10,000 or more. So every no show is potentially a 5 figure loss walking out the door. Or more accurately, not showing up and not walking in. And it gets worse, not better. In 2023, MGMA poll found that 37% of medical groups reported their no-show rates were actually increasing. So you have this massive growing opportunity and expensive problem, and that's what AI is trying to solve with these new software. So this niche is going to be the AI medical scheduling software market that is valued at about 160 million in 2024, and by 2033 it's projected to hit 1.4 billion with a compound of about 28% annual growth. So if we look at this, here is the market size in 2024, and you can see the growth numbers heading all the way up to $1.4 billion in 2023. And that's from Grand View Research, and other market research firms project similar double-digit growth rates depending on how they define the segment. Now, here is the real story. It's not just the money pouring in. Juventus raised about 150 million in January 2025, led by KKR. Bain Capital also took a majority stake in Lean TAAS, which raised 250 million in total funding and operates across 500 plus hospitals. Notable Health, which automates healthcare operations including scheduling, raised about 119 million. Next Health hit a $1 billion valuation. So these aren't small bets. The revenue capital world has decided that AI scheduling is one of the most investable categories in healthcare. And the big EHR players, the electronic health record companies and software companies, they are going to be in this too. So Epic, the largest EHR vendor in the country with over 300 million patient records, has built in no-show prediction models, and Oracle Health is building AI for scheduling into their platforms. Athena Health also acquired a no-show predictive startup called Arsenal Health back in 2016 and is now rolling out AI native scheduling features. So why does this matter to you? Let's talk about the potential opportunities and what we're seeing. So according to the Office of National Coordinator for Health IT, 71% of US hospitals already using predictive analytics inside their EHR systems. And scheduling was one of the fastest growth use cases, jumping up from 51% to 67% adoption in a single year. But here is the gap. Only 15% of medical groups are actually using predictive analytics to manage their no-shows according to MGMA. The tools are here, but people who know how to use them are not. And that's going to be the opportunity. So, what would you actually do in one of these roles? So, let me paint a quick picture. Ardent Health, a 30 hospital system across 6 states, started using Epic's no-show predictive model in 2023. What they did was they built Power BI dashboards to identify high-risk appointment slots. Then they strategically overbooked those slots instead of just hoping the patients would show up. Someone built those dashboards, someone tracked whether or not the model predictions were actually accurate, and then someone presented those results to clinic leadership and then said, here's where we're losing patients, and here's what the data says we should do about it. And so that's going to be part of the job and the niche, and also the potential projects that you can put into your portfolio. Now, your day-to-day might involve something different, or this could be just a small segment of what rolls up into your daily duties or your projects, but it might also just be what you're dedicated on. So it could just be your day to day involves pulling appointment data from something like Epic. So an Epic Clarity database using SQL, you'd analyze no-show patterns by providers, specialty, time of day of the week, patient demographics. Then you'd build dashboards in Power BI or Tableau showing clinic leaders where their biggest scheduling gaps are. Then you'd monitor AI models that are performing the way they should, tracking their accuracy over time, then flagging when predictions start drifting, and then making sure that the outputs aren't biased across patient populations. And then you'd be the one translating all of that into plain English for the people who actually run the clinics, and you'd be making the recommendations. The data science teams are usually the ones who are going to build the models, but you never know at smaller companies. That could also be the opportunity for you to be more technical. You just have to make sure the models work in the real world and that the right people act on what they find. And what I found at smaller companies is you'll be wearing multiple hats, and maybe you're going to have more advanced technical skills compared to everyone else. So that's also an opportunity to grow your data science skills if you want to transition into a more data science heavy role like a data scientist. So it's another way for you, once you're in, to get the experience you need to transition into a higher role. So for here, the job titles are going to vary. You're not going to always see scheduling in the title. So here is what I would search for. You would look for healthcare data analyst, and it's going to be the most common, most accessible at a clinic setting or one that works with clinics. You'll also see things like clinical operations analyst, patient access analyst, or revenue cycle informatics analyst. Some of these you're going to see at healthcare systems directly, like Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, or Intermountain Health. And then others, you're going to see these on the vendor side, like with companies I just mentioned, Lean TAAS, Qventus, or Artera. And don't overlook the EHR consulting firms that help hospitals implement these tools. They're constantly hiring as well. So the key takeaway here is these roles exist across multiple tiers of the healthcare ecosystem, which gives you a lot of entry points depending on your background. And then if you have this inside your portfolio, it's going to be something that makes you stand out for applying for these companies. Now, let's talk about the salary ranges because that's going to be something that you'll be interested in. According to Glassdoor, healthcare data analysts earn a base pay range. This is across all years of experience. It's going to be a base pay of 67K to 116K, with the total pay range when you add in additional pay and bonuses is going to be around 82K to on the higher end of the range, 143K. The median pay is going to be about 108K, and that's across all years of experience. So it's going to depend on your experience, your location, whether or not you're at a healthcare system or a vendor, how big that company is. But that's the current range that we're seeing on Glassdoor. As more healthcare systems build out their AI and scheduling analytics, this number has also room to improve as well, especially as we see the market evolve and as data analytics in general starts to implement more AI, we'll start to see how that's going to shape all the future salary bands. Now, here's what makes this especially attractive from a growth standpoint. If we look at the BLS, the Department of Bureau of Labor Statistics, for data scientists. And yes, it does say data scientists, but the BLS classifies many of the data analysts and and the business intelligence analyst roles under their data scientist categories, which doesn't make sense, but that's what they do. Here, the job outlook is around 34%, which is much faster than the average. But when you look at where some of the other analyst roles also roll up into, which is they roll up into the other category, which is operations research analyst, this is also still growing at 21%. So this is going to be growth from 2024 to 2034. That's 11 times the 3% average for all occupations. So depending on where they're reporting to and where the various jobs are rolling up under, it's still going to be growing, and it's considered a high growth role inside a high growth industry. So that combination is rare, even though it doesn't feel like it. It's just because of the growth that things are a lot more competitive. So it's you're going to be competing against a lot of people, but there's still ways to stand out in the market today. Now, here's why I'm telling you all of this. This isn't just something to understand for an interview. This is something that you can build now, like right after this video, and you can build it and become more competitive and put into your portfolio. First, here are a few things that will happen when you build this. First, you're going to have a portfolio project that proves you can work with Python healthcare data and predictive analytics. That's not going to be another Coursera certificate or Google Analytics certificate that just sits on your LinkedIn that more people have. So it's not becoming a differentiator in today's market. That's a working project that a hiring manager can look at and say, okay, this person knows healthcare data and actually built something for healthcare. They understand the data, the clinic data. They can actually help if we bring them in. Second, and here is a part that most people miss, this is the kind of project that you could build for a real clinic now. One of the things that is hard is people don't have the healthcare experience to apply to these roles. But if you imagine yourself walking into a local clinic, a small practice, or working for a friend's clinic, dentist, physical therapy office, and just saying, I built a no-show prediction model using public healthcare data. I can show you which of your patients are most likely to miss their appointments and help you reduce those gaps in your schedule. Now you have a better pitch of how you can help a clinic and start volunteering at that clinic to get experience. And that's not asking for a job, that's offering to solve a problem that they already have and that the data shows is a big problem that's losing them money. And then at the same time of helping them, you're going to be gaining the experience that you need for your resume so that you can actually apply to these roles. What I would do if I was starting out right now, especially with AI, what you're going to use is you're going to use an AI chatbot. So use that as your coding partner. I would start fresh, even if I knew no Python today. And what I would personally use is I would use Claude. And you can use ChatGPT, you can use Gemini or whatever else you're comfortable with. But what you want it to do is you want AI to write the code for you. But as you go through it, you're not just going to be passively letting AI do everything for you. You need to fill in the missing gaps into your knowledge. So what you're going to do is you're going to have AI explain it to you in mental models or things that you know very, very well so that you can piece together and learn faster. And then anything that you're confused about, any function, any words that look weird, any line of code, or even how to set up your environment on VS Code or whatever else that you're going to be using, ask questions. We have all of these different models and different missing pieces of information. And the way that you learn deeply is by filling in those gaps and that network of knowledge that's inside your head that you don't know. And that's why deeply learning in general is more complex and overwhelming, is because we have a massive amount of information that we're lacking. So what we want to do is while AI is building it with us, we want to ask the questions so that we can learn it at a deeper level. You want to learn what each piece does, help troubleshoot when something breaks. So your job is to understand what's happening and keep asking those questions until you actually understand what it does. And you could potentially build this from scratch afterwards. So we're going to reverse engineer from the actual building and having AI do it for you because we're going to speed up that process. From there, we're going to learn from the actual doing instead of just taking and being passive with just another course or tutorial. Now, for you, where you actually write and run the code, you have a few options that you can take that people aren't really talking about right now. If you just want to get started right now, you can use Google Colab. Colab is a free tool from Google that lets you run Python code directly inside your browser. So just search up Google Colab and sign in with your Google account, and then you're in. You don't have to worry about installing the latest Python library. It's downloading VS Code or whatever IDE that you're going to be using. There's no setup, and you get to have the practice now. You can think about it. It's like a Google notebook, or you can think about it simply as like a Google Doc that runs code. And the best part is that there are data science libraries you need for this project inside there that are already pre-installed. So that means you can go from zero and from scratch to running your first model in minutes and not hours because you're trying to fight with the installations and trying to figure out how to set up from scratch. Still, I would still go learn how to set up your environment from scratch. But if you just want to get the practice in right now, that is one way to start fast. And if you want that more permanent setup, as you eventually build more projects, you're gonna want an IDE. An IDE is just an integrated development environment, just a fancy name, but it's a simple concept. It's basically an overglorified text editor where that's designed for writing code and making writing code easier. It has built-in tools, helps you run it, spot errors, organizes your files. And I personally use VS Code, which is free, and it's the most popular IDE in the industry right now. And you'll be using that at the enterprise level as well if you get there. So it's going to be a tool that scales the better that you get as well. But that setup we'll go over in a future video. If that is something you guys are interested in, I'll do a full tutorial. But for today, you can just use Collab to start you going. Now, Kaggle has medical appointment no-show data that you can use right now. So the first step would go to Kaggle, search for medical appointment no-show, and Kaggle is a free platform where people share real-world data sets for practice projects. So you're going to search for medical appointment no-shows. You're going to find this data set with over 110,000 rows and records. And it's pretty detailed and thorough, as you can see here. And then step two is open Google Colab or your IDE if you have VS Code already. And then step three is open up your AI tool, open up Claude, and then tell it something like this. There's going to be more optimized ways of prompting, but at a high level, this is generally what you're going to be doing. So I'm just not going to overcomplicate it. We're just going to simplify it. And you could even just get started with this. I'm a beginner with no Python experience. I have a Kaggle data set called medical appointment no-shows with about 110,000 records. Walk me through building a patient no-show prediction model step by step. Explain every concept before showing me the code. Give me complete code blocks I can copy and paste. After each step, tell me what I should see on my screen so I know that it worked. With that one simple prompt, that will get you started. And then you go and you take action, and then you start to reverse engineer what you don't know. Every time that you hit something that you don't understand, you just ask, what does this line of code do? Why do we split the data into two? Why did you use this function instead of this function? And then you try to explain it back into your words. Okay, if I'm understanding this correctly, you're doing this because of this. And then if we change this is how it would change the output. Then you try to apply the knowledge that you have as you're learning so that you can have AI either tell you you're wrong or AI tell you that you're right and you're on the right track. So then that's how you go from passive learning to active learning, because a lot of we've been there where we've just taken all these courses passively and not retained anything. And then when we go to build a project like this, we don't understand how to start. We don't understand why everything works. And we don't understand the fundamental concepts that we learned a long time ago. This is a way to actively learn and deeply ingrain the concepts so you can actually apply it when you're on the job. So the cycle is simple. You just build, you get stuck, you ask AI, you understand, you keep going. That cycle, that is going to be the fastest way that I've learned personally to learn something new. It's how I've learned things before AI, when I had to look up things in Stack Overflow, when I had to go on forums and just Google things and just learn by doing. But now that we have AI, it's a faster and more iterative process so that you can learn instead of just going through another tutorial and waiting and prolonging the time that you go from scratch to actually getting a job. And here is the real unlock. Once you've built this with this data, with this Kaggle data, you'll understand how it works and you can rebuild it with a local clinic's real data. And that's how this a portfolio project becomes healthcare experience. And that's how a practice exercise can become a consulting engagement where you trade your time for the experience you need for your resume. And that's how you go from I'm trying to break into healthcare analytics to I already built something that works and I can show you how I can apply it to your own clinic to give you value instead of just please let me work on your data. I just need the experience. Now, let's take this a step further to make a more competitive version of the project that we just talked about. Now, let's take this a step further and make this from a good project to a great project. Here's what separates the two. A good version is going to run the model and show the results. A great version is going to do three extra things. First, it's going to show feature importance analysis. That means you show which factors mattered most in predicting the no-shows, ranked and visualized. Your AI tool can walk you through using this with something called SHAP values, SHAP. You don't need to understand the math behind it. You just need to understand the output because the output is what you're going to present to the clinic director. And these are the 5 biggest drivers of missed appointments at your facility. And then you would go and you would explain what those are. Second, it's going to translate your predictions into money. Remember that $200 per missed appointment number? You're going to take your model's prediction and calculate the estimated revenue impact. If this model had been running last quarter, it would have recovered X dollars in lost appointments. That's going to be a sentence that when you add into your portfolio, when you talk about inside your interviews, that where the hiring managers will lean in or the clinics that you're going to be potentially working and volunteering for, that you can help them with because it recovers and has real business impact. And then third, this is what most entry level candidates never think about. Run a fairness check across demographic groups. Are certain patient populations being flagged as high risk at disproportionate levels? That's a healthcare equity problem. And it's showing that you thought about signals a high level of sophistication that most people at your level don't have. Also, just doing this project in general, this is already in the territory of bordering data scientists levels of work. Being able to have this and being able to show that you could do this as a data analyst shows that you have more technical skills that will make you more competitive compared to other people who do not even have any Python experience. And this is something that you could build in a night or a weekend. You don't have to figure out any of this alone. Ask your AI tool because AI models are getting so good and a lot of people are just not taking advantage of the AI models to help them build projects and learn faster. This is your competitive advantage. Now you just ask, how do I add snap value analysis to my no-show model? Help me calculate the estimated revenue savings from these predictions. How do I check if my model has demographic bias? Build, ask, understand, and then you keep on going. Now, here's the bottom line. You have a $150 billion problem that every healthcare system in the country is trying to solve. The market is growing at a 20% rate, and companies that have raised 650 million combined to build tools to solve this. And 85% of medical groups still aren't using predictive analytics to manage no shows. That is a gap where the jobs and opportunities potentially could be for you to break in. And if you're looking for a niche to specialize, this is one of the most compelling that I've come across recently. And the technical barrier is learnable, especially with AI, to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. Again, the data sets are free, the research is published, the business impact is immediate and measurable in dollars. So this is the kind of tactical career focused content that is going to help you. So if it's helpful to you, subscribe because I'm on a mission to help 10,000 people break into healthcare data analytics. And videos like this is how we're going to get you there. So watch this next video because YouTube thinks that you like it. And I'll see you in the next one. Query responsibly.